I mean, look, I'll be honest.
Please do.
Okay, now with your permission, I definitely will. I prefer Horizon Lunar Colony. I like it, and I think it's, I enjoy it more. It looks cool, it's on the moon. I think Hanamura is beautiful, don't get me wrong. There's a lot I like about it, but compared to Horizon Lunar Colony, space is rad.
So we'll have to kind of agree with that, but the teams are going to be playing on this map at least. In fact, just definitely for now anyway. Yeah. It's going to be goats on both sides, the 3-3 coming through, but Villeneuve on the Winston version for Talon Esports.
And this is also Talon. Aquila and a week going to be in, no TYG for this one. Just maintaining that lineup for the time being. Xavier just slowly trying to push their way through this opening choke point.
Right now, just kind of feeling the space out. Villeneuve is very far ahead in ultimate, so you have to really consider that right now. Xavier still yet to walk through these doors, which is a bit of an issue. Attempting to break in, but they've already lost more than 30 seconds.
Need to take a leaf out of Hanzo's book. That's going to be the rotation in. Thittercorn nearly went down, but Olivier does go down. And I think it might have even been in the effort of trying to keep Thittercorn alive and in the fight. So Xavier actually chooses to rotate back, losing Queen as they do so, and Tay as well. This has now become very expensive. Talon will go for a route, and they will succeed in so doing.
It's a big cleanup as well. A lot of members went down there, and for Xavier, at least they didn't get a DMAC off the Padapan. That one would have really hurt them. Talon Esports so stunned to really run away with these advantages. Look at the ults. Persia's already got it. The rest are not too far along.
Now, as they are set on the defense, Talon with the ultimates coming up. Xavier, they've got a ways to go, as we said. But eventually, Xavier with that Reinhardt should start to edge it out over Villeneuve.
It's taking a while, though.
Yeah, good catch up. Did it go on to the rotation.
The problem here is now they just keep losing one member at a time, and this is what Villeneuve on the Winston allows you to do. You get to dive in, drop a shield into the middle, which, by the way, cancels out a lot of healing. And for Xavier Esports, attempting to break through, what you may end up seeing here is, if they get desperate enough, which it's getting towards that point halfway through this attack at the 2-minute mark, they may have to expend an ultimate just to break past the choke point.
And I mean, Talon haven't had to expend ultimates at all. That's the real thing here. These have been free fights, essentially. They've just been out-positioning and out-playing Xavier. Xavier aren't even really putting Talon in difficult situations yet. Now moving forward, this is very aggressive from Xavier, just trying to force ultimates from Talon. They do commit a couple of their own. Self-destructors out there. There's the grab to come in. Self-destruct to try and layer on top from Gogora.
That's big!
Oh, Jiminy Christmas finds 3, and the follow-up on the rest. Now, Xavier did achieve their goal. They did get some ultimates out of Talon, but you got to say, they're still not in a favorable position yet.
Yeah, certainly not, but Queen and Olivier might get these ults soon. Padapan going to make the change of the Doomfist as well, which does reasonably well against the Winston on the other side. And now for Xavier, just still attempting to get on top of the point. They've not been able to touch it just yet. They don't even know what it looks like. It's completely untouched. You can just see there, no progress whatsoever.
Yeah, here be dragons, or here be goats, I guess. Talon still on this defense. They've still got a Primal Rage to work with that could really make things different. That's a shatter from Queen. It's decent, but it's hard to follow that up with the sound barrier there. They don't really get much for it. Finding Persia, though, in the mix and a week as well. This is what they've been needing this entire time. Xavier took them a long time, but they're finally starting to break this one through. Aquila going down. Villeneuve, despite the Primal Rage, should be dropping here. Gogora going to get popped out of the mech, and he's second now. And it is Xavier's fight to win.
Look at that. Nice pop-off play from Padapan as well. Goes off the map and rocket punches back in for Haru. Gotta get the final cleanup, I suppose, onto Gogora as well, but opens up the point nonetheless. You can actually see this play, or rather this change on the Doomfist, as well as Xavier just finally getting a few ultimates in there, allow them to break through that barrier that Talon has set up, allows them to push through past the tanks, get on top of the point, and in that one attempt, they finally do manage to cap.
Now they're actually in a good position to cap point B as well when you consider the Earth Shatter and the Meteor Strike. If they can get good connection on those, they don't really get much for the Earth Shatter. Challengers kind of retreat onto the low ground, but Padapan's there to meet them with a Meteor Strike, finds Haru as well, and Talon are very separated out. Padapan finishing off a week is so huge. Villeneuve as well. The pressure becomes insurmountable. Aquila, he knows he's not long for this world, and Gogora's self-destruct on the point doesn't really get anything done. They heal up Padapan, he's back in the fray. That's 1/3, 2/3. Talon's still waiting for respawns. A week may not even get here. Throws out his grab, but doesn't get to the point. Snowball for Xavier, they fully cap B.
And I gotta say, for Xavier as well, they actually run up to a week. Or was it Gogora? In my mind's a little bit of a blank.
I believe it was weak.
And now they run up to a week and they actually block out the Graviton Surge. Week's trying to throw it somewhere else, but he can only get the members directly into his face. I also have to highlight now Padapan's mechanics on the Doomfist here. threads the needle in a lot of plays, just continues to find members, even at the end there, reads the charge play from Villeneuve, charges up his own rocket punch and then unleashes it just to get the counter stun against Villeneuve so that they're both on their backs. The opposite effect would have been he just gets charged out of the way, takes 300 damage.
I mean, it's amazing that that was the change-up they really needed. Patapan over onto the Doomfist. This was the fight that actually kind of allowed it. They committed a lot of ultimates and forced a good number out of Talon. This is what opened the gates for them.
Kagura even getting that 3K in there. This was a bit of an earlier fight. This was when Talon Esports was still significantly further ahead in those fights. But as soon as Xavier broke through, they just needed to open the door and then they sprinted to the final, or rather the finish line.
It is also the final line. I'll give you that. And now going to hold on to the Doomfist on the defense. I believe Talon, if they're hovering this, they may actually want to commit to the Pharaoh. That could be a decent way of dealing with it.
I actually think Talon Esports, to do the discipline thing here would be to scout with a Sombra first, just to really confirm what you're up against, and then decide how you want to approach Patapan. Because once you do see the Doomfist, you could probably expect someone like Aquila to go into a Sombra as a counter. Aquila himself could also play a Doomfist. He's got a very good Doomfist, as we've said.
For sure. They are actually just going to go straight out the gate on the Ghost. They've seen the Doomfist now as Patapan just pulled back. Now Talon have to force their way through this opening chokehold to start with. There's the one in the rotation. They find Villeneuve. Trying to follow up on Patapan does not pay off for Gagora. Unfortunately so. We do apologize for the stuttering, but Xavier looking like they're going to be able to hold that first one pretty handily.
It just comes off the fact that the opening kill from Patapan as well, knocking Villeneuve away, collecting that one. Now for Talon Esports, they still have the position to try and counter this one out. Aquila, again, can make the swaps if he wants to. Talon Esports can make the adaptation, or they can continue playing to Patapan.
And that's the thing, you'd like them to make the adaptation, but honestly, Xavier, they're kind of in their element here. It is actually on Talon to answer. That being said, Queen does go down, but there's the counter trades coming through.
Counter trades way better.
Finding Aquila, absolutely massive. And Queen will eventually come back into this. That's a bit of a late-in-the-day grab out of Olivier. Might not have been too necessary, but they want to ensure that they secure the fight. And they're going to have an Earth Shatter for the next one anyway.
That's probably the only real egregious thing out of Xavier. Probably if they did save the grab, that would serve them better in the long run, which you should be planning for, as Talon usually does. But now they're a little bit too committed to this. Now you don't get the change up against Patapan because you're heading into ultimates. Aquila's nearly onto the rally. At least the Brigitte does have shield bash options, which you do want to play into, but here comes Patty.
There's the displacement and the Earth Shatter underneath Villeneuve. So huge. He lands down to find his team already dead. That is a slick play from Xavier.
Absolutely, and that's kind of the combo that opens up for you as well. When you're running Doomfist and Brigitte, both of those players, both of those heroes can open up an Earth Shatter combo for your team. Queen can just land that Shatter after either Villeneuve's been stunned out or knocked up. But Talon Esports just can't really contest that unless Aquila gets a shield bash onto Queen.
Only thing is, because it was so quick, Xavier don't exactly charge ults, and Talon was smart to conserve their ultimates as well. Now it's their turn to get aggressive.
Sounds like double transcendence.
Out, yeah. No casualties just yet on either side of the fence. Talon gonna have to commit a sound barrier as well to stay in it. Earth Shatter, Meteor Strike in, doesn't find much. Now we're stuck in the grab. That's the opening kills at long last. Patapan's gonna have to absolutely pop off if they want to turn this one back around. But I think he knows better than. Does at least find Haru. That's probably all he's gonna find here.
What you do see here is Olivier charges up a late Graviton Surge. Patapan just wants to stagger through. And now you see the difference as well. If Olivier had managed to save his grab earlier and they could use it for an earlier fight, maybe things go slightly differently. That is, alas, a bit of something in hindsight that you have to look at for Xavier. They still managed to shave roughly 3 minutes off the clock here for this offense. Talon Esports still have a lot to contest with if they do want to get a comparable time back. It's very likely that Talon Esports will not have a better time back than Xavier now.
As the thing, Xavier have set themselves up nicely here now to begin B, just with the ultimates that are coming up online at this particular time. So now they need to leverage them. They need to actually connect with them. Let's not count Talon out just yet.
Still looking for positioning right now. They're looking for where Patapan is. He's the most important mid, but he actually gets stunned out.
Yeah, isolated, nicely done there, but the counter grab is huge, and I mean, look at that. That's so huge from Queen. 4 kills for himself. Finishes that last little bit of charge on the Earth Shatter. You almost wish he had less charge at the start of that fight so that those 4 kills could account for so much more. Gagora does get out, but barely, man.
That's insane. 10 HP, the difference between him getting staggered as a Baby D.Va and not is potentially, you know, the difference.
It's 20 seconds.
I mean, it's certainly something that really plays into this. Now for Xavier, though, despite Patapan going down, like you said, the grab coming through, Queen picks up 4, gets himself an Earth Shatter, and now they can really contest. Both teams fairly even in charges here. Patapan does have a bit of a lead on the Meteor Strike, and Xavier have respawn advantage.
And this is really the rotation now down onto the point for Talon. There's the pump up. The Earth Shatter, they were a bit in the air, but it still pays off. They managed to get the connection with the Meteor Strike and all the rest. And Xavier scooping up another good clean ring of kills. This time though, Talon will come back in with a few more ultimates, but again, clean fights from Xavier so far.
It's a full 6 kill on the side of Talon Esports as well. Keeler did get the suicide, so at least it denies himself a little bit for Xavier Esports. Reasonably cheap fight for them. Basically just the Earth Shatter. Did combo that with the Meteor Strike, but the Talon Esports side are playing discipline. They are still playing patient. They didn't throw ults in there. They are waiting for critical mass. They're waiting for their win condition to arrive, and then they will capture.
And that's the thing. Talon, they don't care if it takes them overtime. They don't care how long it takes at all, as long as they get it. Queen low, gets topped off. Both teams just going to skirmish out of the point. For
oh, that's nice
Queen, huge save though by Theticon. Might not have needed the sound barrier as well, but while they're both running, they need to get some kills in. Grav coming through onto Queen and Theticon, but nothing to stop them from dying this time around. Those defensive tools already used. And Patapan's not on Doomfist. He's not able to get that big impressive string of kills, and this looks like it's going to be the one, the straw that breaks the camel's back. Talon, this was their opportunity, this was their moment, and indeed, it could have just been the double ultimates out of Xavier's supports that secured it. Xavier trying to trickle on as best they can. Stun up on CHK, will not touch the point, and Talon will push the time back.
And that's the thing, as soon as they find that shot, they will completely whack you where you least expect it, straight in the face. Get that nice slam in there. And the thing about Talon Esports as well, it only took them realistically 1 push. They failed every other push onto B, but the one that they succeed on is the one they cap on, and it's the full 100%. It is not going to be as good of a time as Xavier, but they still get a very comparable time anyway. You do have to consider, I want to agree with your sentiment here. Both Tay and Theticon use support ultimates laid on top of each other. If one of them had saved it, they would have had something to defend against a Graviton Surge from a week.
Yeah.
That might have been the saving grace.
That's all they needed. That's the thing. And that's often just, I mean, it's those reaction plays, you know, it's the correct thing as the support to do that, but it's also not necessarily having the discipline. Exactly, it's the coordination there, whether you call it or whether you pre-plan it. Okay, when this happens, this support ults first, this one goes later if needed. I mean, however you achieve it, that's got to be the net effect. You've got to be able to preserve one.
And at this sort of level, when you do have the top 2 teams playing, perhaps there's an even argument for top 2 teams in this region, if not top 3, I think, in fact. You can't make these kind of mistakes. Every small mistake, the margins are so small, everything gets punished, so everything kind of has to be perfect if you want to win.
Now though, Talon, they only have 2 minutes 40, and that actually is less time than what it initially took them to cap, so they do need to have a good run here. There is still a chance they get fully held on A.
They're running to Patapan again, and Persia's got to cop one.
Yeah, huge punch to the face there, and Aquila goes down as well in the rotation. Villeneuve not long for this world. So that's the first push, ultimately a failure. Good stagger on Gagora as well.
See Queen as well, just taking the gentleman's fight with Villeneuve, Ryan on Ryan action, and Patapan disturbs the peace. And Xavier Esports, they do manage to win that first one. It's 2 minutes now remaining roughly as soon as Talon Esports do actually respawn. Early ult charges go in the way of Xavier Esports, so you're starting to find now Talon Esports, much like the original attack, are just running into a brick wall of Patapan.
And that's the thing, I mean, Patapan on this Doomfist is such a difference maker for this team. Now, next rotation, gonna look to go for Villeneuve this time, gets very aggressive, but that's not gonna be a quick kill, unfortunately.
Gets back to his team.
Yeah. With that Orb of Harmony on him as well. Patapan has to duck off to the side. They have to find another way in now. There he is. Oh no, too deep. And Villeneuve has an Earth Shatter first. That is unbelievable. And that was not the right target for Xavier to be focusing on that whole time. Could have gone for backliners, could have gone for so many other things. Could have full held Talon, but now 1 minute 20, they start the cap. Should have at least a minute and a half going into B.
And now the difference maker this time is they managed to isolate Villeneuve. Patapan punches him out of the way, but he was protected by the bubble coming out from his teammate a week. And then the thing is, not only does Villeneuve survive, but then he gets that shatter before Queen, like you mentioned. Absolutely huge turnarounds from Talon Esports. If Xavier had cleaned up that kill, that would have been a very different defense. But now we're on to B. Ult's coming online for Xavier. It's time to get this defense in action.
Dangled Villeneuve out there like a tasty morsel, but not an easy one to swallow, unfortunately. Now the main scrap, the Meteor Strike, needs to really connect onto the back line. Doesn't want to go too deep into it. Stunned out. Get out here. He's in trouble. The rest of the team stuck up in a grab. Sound barrier's there. Now they scatter, but that means they're separated. Now they're trying to regroup on the point. They did at least trade one back on Haru. That's going to be a saving grace. They find Villeneuve as well. Should be able to get the respawns in here. Gagora, self-destruct to try and preserve the mech. May get back in. Finds Dedicon too. And now Xavier suddenly in a tight spot. Olivier hitting Kim at the grab. Does he realize that they need to win this fight? Patapan dies onto the side. It's all going wrong for Xavier. Now Tay's dead. Where are the members? What's going on, Xavier? Get on the point. The members keep dying. Olivier, he's going to have a grab, but I don't even think he gets out of here in time. This is already nearly 2/3. Finally throws it out, but they need to get kills. Dedicon's already dead. Meteor Strike laid on top, but too late. There's going to be a sound barrier there. Patapan's dead a second time. Queen charges in, but he's all alone. Finds a Keeler. Needs to get a huge shatter. Where is it? It's nothing. There's no follow-up. All the members of Xavier absolutely dead. Not going to get out of the spawn gates. And a second full cap from Talon that I dare say should not have happened.
Well, this is now going to be the Talon Esports that could look to close out this series. They had a big deficit in terms of time back to play with. They still have 15 seconds remaining. They didn't even go into overtime. That is a big deal for this team. Talon Esports, when they get on top of the point, when it's a good push, they finish a cap very similar to what we saw on their initial cap through, on that initial attack onto B, on that first phase. They lost a lot of fights in a row, but when they start winning hard, and they really lock up Xavier Esports, who start finding nothing. That was very uncoordinated towards the end there. Like you mentioned, a lot of players split, couldn't quite commit the right ultimates because you need the players to get in there as well. There's maybe a chance where Xavier and Olivier say, I will die here with grab, but if we can respawn together, I can still grab in, we can still win. But that just never happened. They still just kept getting picked off one by one as they spawn.
And I mean, it was almost like Olivier didn't realize there were already 2/3 there. Didn't realize that they were not going to have time to fully respawn. And there were a lot of earlier moments where he could have thrown out, but there was, it was like a 4v6, something a bit more recoverable. A situation where you can turn things around. I mean, it happened by Xavier's hand is how I would feel about it, but one must sweep it into the past. They do still have a shot here. It's going to have to be 2 layers deep, and time bank 349 is enough time to do it.
Yep. It's now backs against the walls though for Xavier. They will get a bonus 30 seconds after capping A. This is assuming we are going to get there. Patapan on the McCree means it's Super McCree time, and he's got pretty good aim across a bunch of different DPSs. Can they find the opening pick?
They need to find something, especially on Patapan. It's going to be tough though. Queen takes some chunks. It's going to be 5 for the time being, but look at the ult charge on Villeneuve already.
Early damage coming out from Winston. That's part of the advantages of playing that hero. Queen just being topped up, I should probably say.
Oh dear, that's the rotation, but the rest of the team got caught in it. Now Patapan's off to the side alone. He can't take this fight, unfortunately. And that's the thing, Xavier kind of half committed to that move. Patapan fully committed, and there's nowhere to win from there.
And the problem is, you can try and fully commit, but Talon Esports won't let you do that. They're going to lock you up. They're going to force you to fight. If you don't fight, you're going to lose members. It's a lose-lose scenario. And for Xavier, playing this composition with Talon being aggressive, they need to look for picks. They have double stuns. They need to leverage that.
Unfortunately, haven't been able to thus far. Now, very aggressive move from Talon. This is potentially punishable, but it doesn't get punished at all. The Transcendence from Persia to keep them safe, and this is great for Talon. This is them able to charge up the last little bit of ultimate that they needed that otherwise wouldn't have been available.
And they need to be able to make sure as well, Talon speaking that is, to use something like Transcendence to guarantee a fight win, to guarantee additional ult charge on members like a Weak who desperately need it, to make sure they're not going to have respawning members, which does give Xavier an advantage. Patapan now swapping onto a D.Va, playing something a little bit more traditional for this attack.
His D.Va is decent, but unfortunately it doesn't have the same playmaking potential, and they are still behind in the macro game. And this is unfortunately them double support ultimates still dying mostly in that grab. Now Olivier's turn to commit a grab. They need to get a lot of kills in the middle of it, and they're finally finding a few. Persia and Haru, that's an open, but Patapan loses the mech. Xavier have the closer respawn, but that doesn't mean much unless you're actually winning the fight. They still don't have a numbers advantage. OWC still outputting tons of damage. Aquila even finds one on the side. Patapan down, and Queen could have Primal Rage at some point there, but now they're in full retreat, losing so much time.
Speaking of Primal Rage, Villeneuve has not been pressured to use one at all. He's been holding on to it in case he gets in trouble, saving it for a rainy day, but it's all sunshines and rainbows for Talon right now, and Xavier looking at dark skies ahead because they're running out of time. 124, they still get that extra 30 seconds, but they have to cap out twice. They have to get both A and B to go to another time bank.
Exactly, it's just not a great situation. The grab now out, Xavier all caught up in it. This time no defensive ultimates to steer through it, and it's all falling apart for Xavier. The discipline has slipped completely.
And now Talon Esports just in the grasp of those talents, just clutching against Xavier, who are running out of breath here. Less than 1 minute. Getting a little bit desperate here as well. They still add an ultimate deficit, I should probably say. Talon Esports had a huge advantage. Olivier maybe gets this grab. He has to try and save his team, but the Talon just have so much.
Oh, and Patapan's already nearly out of the mech. So much damage that comes out of OWC. Now it's Queen's turn to just try and tank up for as long as possible, but Talon just ignore it. They push ahead themselves because no one can follow through it here. Xavier, I mean, this is so little ground made.
Self-destruct coming through, but look at the grab.
Grab again. Gagora does go down, that's something, but the self-destruct for Gagora, so much bigger than Patapan. Absolutely massive now, and it may only be 1 kill more, but it's enough to tip the scales, turn the tides. Haru does go down, but again, the charge coming out of OWC, the damage that he does, Olivier coming up on a grab, it's going to have to be a big one.
Overtime coming into effect very soon now. Olivier coming up, like you said. He does get a kill, that is advantage.
Sound barrier out from Tay as well. They're still in this. Do not count Xavier out. Don't you dare. They find Aquila. Olivier low. Doesn't commit the grab. Could be costly, but they could also pay off. They might have it for the next fight, but OWC still in this. He's nearly got a grab, and there's going to be a Transcendence from Persia. Not enough to save Gagora, and OWC, he's considering, do I commit the grab? He wants to get rid of Patapan first. Does not able to. Has to commit the grab straight
off the map.
They don't get anything for it. Bumped off the side, and Xavier, they weather the storm. They've capped it out. They must snowball.
It's 30 seconds in a dream and 4 ultimates to boot as well. Xavier now potentially in the precipice of defeat, I should probably say. They must win this fight. They must cap out. They must win the map. They are 0-2 down. Less than 15 seconds remaining. This is so tense. Xavier have got to do this.
Queen diving up onto Persia, onto the high ground. Throws out the Primal Rage. That is a terrible position on the self-destruct. Cannot get anything up there. The grab only gets Aquila. It's a one-man grab, and it's not enough here. Olivier's down. They're all clean out of ultimates.
They've got ult
Persia. They just need to out-frag. They need something. The sound barrier's there. Instantly committed to give themselves more space in the fight. But what they need is Olivier. What they need is damage output, the grab to charge up. First third over now for Xavier. They're still in this as Queen is putting out the damage best as he can, but now OWC with a huge amount of charge coming on to the point. Patapan's out of the mech. Tay's low. He might go down. Stun on OWC keeps him at bay, but only for a breather. Now Xavier low on members. Olivier trying to come back into the fight. No defensive ultimates. Grab to come out on the last few members of the point. Overtime's done. Xavier, they will not keep the dream alive. Talon, they will guarantee a first place seed, and now it's all about the glory of a 4-0.
That's now a 3-0 cleanup for Talon Esports and Xavier. They pushed it towards the end, the last gasp out of them into that final engagement, but just constantly had 1 member down. It started with Olivier. 5 members are available for the rest of Xavier Esports. Patapan does get demeched as well as Olivier comes back, and still 5 members only for that offense, despite getting a number of picks on their end. Too many respawns coming through for the side of Talon Esports. Grab being built up by OWC as well. MVP in that final engagement, staying alive, 100 energy, getting that grab, keeping members alive. So well played by Talon, absolutely methodical. Even when it gets very, very close, it's something about Talon. They edge it out. They are able to get that win no matter how dicey it gets.
And I mean, that's also to say nothing, let's be completely honest. Xavier not able to complete a number of defenses that they possibly should have, struggling to get successful pushes on their offenses on point A. And this is all to say nothing of how the previous maps went as well. This has not just been because of one last push. The series win here has been all of these things put together. It's been the edging out over and over and over by Talon. This is why they are the best team in the group. This is why they won in Season 2. Xavier isn't the team that's going to challenge them, at least not right now. Maybe things will change in the playoffs. Certainly, I would say that that's a possibility. And there's still a Hong Kong attitude over in Group B that eventually Talon might have to contend with. But for now, they're the Season 2 champions and the Group A champions.
The thing is, when you start looking at the series and you say, have Talon been challenged? I'm going to have to say, yes, they have been challenged, but have they been pushed far enough to actually cop a loss? The answer is no, not so far, not since week 1. Only 2 drop maps so far in this entire season. This is now, I think, truly for the first time, and I can safely say this because now the 3-0 is in effect, Talon have officially claimed #1 spot in Group A. The first time we have both had a returning champion and a returning champion that is a favorite for the tournament.
Says a lot, doesn't it? But look, the series itself isn't over yet. We do still kind of expect Xavier to get one win somewhere in here. Make God bleed. We've got one more map to come up. Let's go ahead and take a look at what it is going to be. As we move on to Escort, it remains to be the pick for the other team in this series, Xavier. For some reason, I forgot that name for a moment there, and they're going to go ahead and take it to Route 66 once again.
This is where I expect all the DPS to come out to play. And what excites me about this is if you look at the past matches for Talon Esports when we did get to Route 66, they put in all 3 of their DPS players, dropped out Villeneuve, their main tank player, and just kept their flex tank Agora in there. I do wonder if they will make the exact same change for Route 66 today, knowing that in those previous matches they had technically easier teams to play against. If they take the risk here, will it play out the way they're looking for, or will they get punished? Because I don't know that Xavier are going to let them off lightly.
It would be very telling if they do. It would speak to a certain amount of confidence, but you're quite right. If they do, they will have a harder time of it against Xavier.
Particularly because you also have Paddy Pan, who is a very competent DPS himself, and as expected, a weak Aquila, TYG all into the mix. In fact, Gogora even mousing over that McCree right now. And what I do expect is, once Xavier do see all the DPSs, I'm expecting Paddy Pan to probably snipe here. And if he goes Widow, Talon better be prepared.
If he goes Widow, God's help us all.
But that's the matchup I do want to see, though.
I also actually really like Patapan over onto the Zarya and Olivier onto the D.Va. Olivier has been a D.Va player in the past.
This is a late swap. I do want to highlight this very quickly. THK had the McCree. They are defending. He's coming back from spawn as a Brigida right now.
It's a long, long walk. Stops any early contest that can come out here. Now he's just back with the team. Moved forward from Aquila. Bit of a dangerous one.
The actual pick onto the Brigida is nice because they have abilities to counter out both the weak and Aquila, but they've already lost a member, which is bad.
Yeah, now Olivier forced to fall back as he gets some healing. This is free push for the cart.
It's been free push for a while. Consider that Xavier have technically been one down for a while.
Yikes.
Especially because THK had to run back from spawn after a late swap. Talon now really pressuring chokes. And for Xavier, they actually have to push back into their own point after losing just one member.
Oh man, TYG, at least he doesn't get any hacks and kills in there. That would have been a bit too punishing if you're a Xavier fan. But at any rate, Xavier, they actually still need to get back into this fight now. Aquila right into the thick of it to try and catch them in the rotation. Xavier kind of weathered that one, but Queen's still taking too much pain. Is going to go down. They haven't got any counter kills. No, that's going to be a play to come out from a weak. He might not even be able to find any kills because all his code DPSs are frankly doing too much damage. Does find Thetacorn, and the dam has been broken now. The torrent rages through. Talon are going to keep pushing relatively unstopped.
And this is where for Xavier as well, they actually got back onto the A defense reasonably unchallenged, walked through from an entrance that Talon did not scout. but unfortunately it wasn't good enough. Look at this now, Xavier going classic dive. THK on Tracer, Patty Pan onto Genji as well. It's going to be the Nano Boost version with Diddycorn onto the Ana. Talon Esports right now playing into potentially at EMP. TYG's got to find the right location. I
do actually quite like this, because you don't have the Brigida, or even, I mean, a lot of the things that could really make the Tracer's day dangerous. You've got the other DPSs, but they're going to be diving, so this is counter dive essentially. As the EMP out, but doesn't really get quick follow up. A weak might have isolated Tay. It's actually Queen who goes down on the front line.
I'm going to say the only thing that does counter them out is definitely the EMP. You don't want to be Tracer or Genji when that drops. They only lost Queen, so it's still 5v6. Xavier can still strike back, but they can't wait for too long because the card is still pushing.
And that's the thing, I mean, it's just not stopped thus far, and a week finds Patapan. Gagora even getting a late kill on THK, and I think it's going to be relatively unbound momentum throughout B here as well.
The good news is because these are two quick DPS, it shouldn't take too long for Xavier to actually regroup together as 6. The other thing to consider, though, is Talon do have a grab, and they are at this cart.
Patapan already, as he comes out of the gate, the grab comes out onto all these squishy members, and Talon's DPSs have a field day. Self-destruct from Olivier is not going to be the hero play that they were needing. Talon, very unceremonious thus far.
By the way, the grab intermediate strike combo is so much more deadly against weak HP heroes like Genjis, like Tracers. THK's had enough of that. He wants to go back now to Brigida. For Xavier, they've yet to mount a true defense. It's been 3 minutes in a row here. Both A and B have expired very quickly.
Patapan's actually sticking to Genji because he's so close to a blade. Speaking of blades, EMB blade out of TYG in a week. They don't actually get the quick connection they need, so the blade's going to get put away. This is now an opportunity for Xavier as they press forward as a weak one forced off to the side. They find Aquila, and now it's Patapan's turn. Let's see what he's able to find. They go forward, gets Haru looking for Persia.
Oh,
hacked out. That's pretty nice. Won't even be able to retreat safely. Good rundown by TYG.
Both Genjis there having a little bit of a hard time. Patapan gets slightly better picks, but for Talon Esports, still don't lose that many members. That was, by the way, a Primal Rage. Also invested. Queen now going on to the Rhine. Patapan onto the Widow now. This is what we wanted to see.
Actually, going to swap over to the McCree instead, but while he's been dilly-dallying back in spawn, the team's been dying on the front lines. At least makes his presence felt the moment he joins the fray, but they are still at a numbers deficit, and there isn't that defense in front of Patapan. He's playing very dangerous.
Gagora's close.
Gagora goes down, nicely done, and not saved by Persia, but the cart's still moved this whole time.
Well, that's a big issue right now because Aquila's also still in this fight.
Boom.
Takes down Diddycorn, which is a big pick, and stays alive.
Now going in for the Meteor Strike, dead on top of Patapan, smack dab on the middle of where that cap will eventually be, and I mean, Xavier still have not stopped Talon.
And they're still in EMP, they're just slightly through all of these different ultimates. A grab coming up next.
They don't actually quite get that one on Olivier. That was a bit too tricky, and TYG trades his life for Queen, but here's going to be the grab to come out. A weak blade. Now throws his lot in with that ultimate, finds 2. Finally having a bit of success on that, unlike the first time he pulled it out. Gets a 3rd one as well. The cap's going to go over just over 3 minutes in the time bank, if we even get there. This is a team that looks like they came here to win.
And this is the problem now for Xavier, who unfortunately look like they're a bit broken down. This is definitely the worst place we've seen them all series, and we've seen them in some pretty difficult places, but they've kept competitive. They make good trades, they still win fights here and there, they still push back. This time it was all just Talon shoving and shoving and shoving, and unfortunately for Xavier, they had to just take it. There was no pushback whatsoever, which is a bit of a surprise.
Very little contest. Not even really much life in them in the actual fights, even when there were fights. It's just a little bit unfortunate. I mean, they look like they are defeated.
And the thing is, I will be honest in saying, because there's no point dodging around this, this map, in terms of actual score, for tiebreaker purposes, is not really going to matter. Because
it's broken the ties.
I mean, it's literally, the tie has been broken now. So this map is literally for
all the tie players look broken.
All right. But I guess that's pretty accurate. But in terms of that, you can say, well, I mean, if you are Xavier right now, losing this map is more of a pride thing than anything else. And for Talon, definitely winning is a pride thing. They want to keep their forum momentum strong.
Please run this, Xavier. Please do it.
Want to see a bit more out of Xavier because, you know, there should be one map in here that they do win, and you'd like to see this one be it.
And please let this be quad DPS versus triple DPS.
I think once Xavier, because they do have the scouting advantage, once they see what Talon are running, they can just kind of counter things out. They can see that it's a lot of DPSs once again, and choose not to run quad DPS.
Yeah, only hit scan at play here for Talon is the Sombra. So THK should have a little bit of freedom in the skies here, but it's not exactly that hard and fast.
Looking at the early sort of progression here from Xavier is quite important. Also keeping an eye on just what kind of damage THK is able to do in the sky. That's already a potential pick-off Queen. Got very low there.
And Aquila already 30% ultimate charge. I mean, you've got to hand it to the guy. Especially with a hand that size. Hand a lot of things to him. Patapan goes down.
That's unfortunate. Well, very good if you're Talon Esports. Because right now, that's the card completely stopped up. No one went down. Aquila got low, but low is no dead.
Compare and contrast, I mean, at this point, Talon, they hadn't even been stopped at all.
Sort of at the point where I wouldn't really mind seeing a Brigitte being played by THK either. The Super McCree does a decent job against all 3 DPS that Talon do run. Already running the McCree. Oh, nice timing on the bubble.
Yeah, Aquila's going to be able to get out of that one alive. And again, it's just that's been the difference thus far. He's not gone down. No one on Talon has died yet. Queen down a second time. Olivier out of the mech. And Xavier, I mean, that's their first kill this entire game. Well, half.
And I might serve them a little while later. Oh, nice deflect. Whoa, that was insane.
Rose, man. And the week's going to get out alive as well.
You know something's really bad when THK as far into the skies against basically no hard counters is still being pressured out quite a decent bit. Still taking a lot of damage out from Talon Esports, who have a lot of ultimates to play with.
TYG now, he's just going to be next up with his EMP. There it goes, right over the team. Doesn't get too much actually, but they're still able to commit. Just the aggression, the damage that comes out to follow it up. Aquila goes deep, doesn't find anything with the Meteor Strike, and takes a snooze. But they can't follow up on it anyway, so he will just be able to retreat.
Now, I do want to say the McCree here is not ideal because you're not running the Super McCree version. He does get a kill with it. But the problem that's not ideal is he doesn't get the protection from the Brigitte. The Mercy is also not on him. The Mercy is playing with THK, so he's actually very, very vulnerable.
You're just kind of hoping on getting enough damage out and landing some headshots in, and that just gets nothing, unfortunately. The Rocket Barrage, they don't get much for that, but they do still get the other kills. That's what they've been needing this whole time. Patapan had already opened up with a few prior to that and gets a few on the back end. Gets the quick melee as well onto a weak. So, nicely done by Xavier. They do kind of finally break this hold, but that feels so much harder than it should have been.
Absolutely, and not a lot of time remaining as well. They took nearly 3 minutes just to get through all of A, and most of that was totally one-sided for Talon, just rotating through all their different DPS ultimates. Still does now have a Dragon Blade available. Has to be somewhat careful because you are playing to Sleep Dart and a Flashbang, which is not going to be easy. Xavier, they do need to absorb that properly, and TYG still coming up onto EMP, which means Talon might just want to wait for now.
I feel like I'm just waiting for Patapan to go off. I feel like that's all I'm doing when I'm watching Xavier.
Certainly was able to show a little bit of that flair towards the end there, but needs to show it a little bit more consistently in the series, which is not an easy thing to do. Here we go.
Shove the strike forward, but that's...
Wow!
Oh, wow. I mean, the Deadeye didn't get anything, but the self-destruct did, so... All right, Xavier.
This is what happens when you don't have a Ryan and a Brigitte. You can't block out that damage very easily, and now Xavier continue pushing on through. And now you got to say as well, the only thing that's really unfortunate is because the self-destruct picked up most of the kills, you don't get the ult charge off it. But Talon Esports are now starting to run into a bit of a brick wall themselves. Part of their compositional strength is being able to set up flanks, but if they're caught up in chokes and caught in respawn positions, they can't get those flanks in.
This is where THK can just consistently chuck those rockets in. Eventually, the damage will get done. Aquila, good stun, but he's still going to, well, the finish off. It's not him, it's TYG. They get Patapan, that's what counts. Slam down into the middle of the fight. Doesn't find anything immediately, but for one thing, not dead, and for another thing, they're ahead in the fight. Haru took so long to go down. By the time he does counter trade onto THK, Aquila takes Olivier out of the mech. The Raves has eventually been nullified at this point. Olivier down, Did have gone down. Tay in full retreat, and Xavier stopped up for the second time now.
I do want to say here, this is very, very confident by Talon Esports that now that we're even in B, I don't know how things are going to go. We can see they're still playing triple DPS.
Not bad.
They are somewhat being punished every now and then by THK or by Patapan or somebody, maybe a Sleep Dart, but for the time being, they are still winning.
grab out, and Patapan just kind of threw a bit of a, not a panic flashbang, it was smart, but he just didn't quite time it right. Aquila was able to connect those 2 kills through, and it's completely undone all the good work Xavier had done just a moment ago.
And now they've lost all momentum. It's 130 remaining at the moment, which means even when they get the 130 for capping this, they can no longer match the time bank set by Talon Esports. And for Xavier, it just seems like a very, very quick slowdown. What we expect to be a fast, aggressive team. This is the slowest they've ever played.
Thidicon just gets sieged out in that position. Now THK. Oh,
seems like very little they can do. THK backs out into the mines, and I don't know, that's not where you want to be as far, but you do have to try and escape. Doesn't manage to get out with his life. Doesn't have Tay on the Mercy to pocket him anymore. Has to sacrifice the Rocket Barrage to go onto something. Got to go into a Ryan by the seams of it, so Ryan and Winston together. No Zarya, no Brigida. Xavier now going to keep attempting to make this happen.
Man, they need to decide.
Tracer, there it is.
That's the way they want to go for this one. They want to get that extra flank pressure, especially on these supports. That's going to be a weak finding one already, even as TYG went down. And I mean, it's just triple DPS doing what it does best. One of the 3 is going to get kills.
Especially right now against what Xavier are running, and the fact that Xavier just so far behind and unable to find enough counter trades when they're still getting traded much harder, and you still have a Talon Esports side that where Persia has not been forced to use Transcendence, he's just still holding it for when things do get dicey, and so far that hasn't happened.
And now Aquila's already found Patapan as Xavier make what is their final rotation towards the payload. Haru does go down, but he gets a nano boost off before that. And Aquila just going to go ahead, Meteor Strike down on the payload. More for style than anything else. TYG, oh, absolutely off it. I mean, who says you can't play Tracer in this meta, man? This is triple DPS to resounding success out of Talon, both on the offense and on the defense here. Now it's a Week's turn to get a couple for his highlight reel, and Talon 4-0 in what should have been their toughest series yet, what is ultimately their 4th 4-0 of the group stages, looking like the favorites to take it all for a 2nd time in a row.
And I'll tell you who stops Brigida, or rather who stops Tracer is Brigida. She says, no, you can't play Tracer, but then when there's no Brigida on the other side, hey, Tracer away all day. And by the way, I think that's actually TYG's best hero pick, and you only just got to see it towards the end there, but look at that.
Brief
full 4-0 for Talon Esports.
Wow.
Fun fact, I do believe we will check with the actual official scoreboard, but I think that puts Talon up to 18-2 for the official map score. I think 21-2 if you want to count. If you want to count the extra map win from the first match, which went to 3-2, but depending on how scoring works, I'm not too sure if that last one really counts for much anyway. But what we can say is they only dropped 2 maps this entire season. And the comparison I'm trying to make here is it reminds me of Detonator Korea in Season 1, also in Group A, also finished with only 2 maps dropped throughout the entire regular season.
And I want to remind you guys, in Season 2, Talon weren't even the best team in their group, at least for the duration of the group stages. In fact, in their final week, they lost to the team at the time, Monster Shield Korea, a team that the very next week, they came back and beat in the quarterfinals. That's when Talon as we know them today were born. That's the Talon that went on to become the champion. And they have not slipped form since then. They've maintained that position. This time, they do not come in as a group that's going to lose a match in the very last week of play and then have to try and beat that team in their quarterfinal. Or actually, it might have been a semifinal, but at any rate, the point still stands. This is a team that has had a phenomenal journey up to this point and are now on track to just repeat the success of last season. If any team is going to turn things back around in a semifinal here, it's actually going to be Xavier. They're the team this time that cops the loss. They could well be birthed in a Forge of Fire, or they could just end up crumbling later on down the line.
Yeah, when you get burnt, I mean, it is fire. And the 3 maps that we did see earlier is, I'm kind of discounting Route 66 a little bit here, even though, I mean, it does count, but at the same time, that was just a very different Xavier that we saw.
Yeah.
The first 3 maps, which were super competitive, that's more closely to what you want to judge Xavier's actual skill level on. And towards those 3 maps, what you can say is, this is a team where once you really go over those 3 maps, you've got to say, a lot of things could have gone their way. This was very close margins a lot of times as well, super competitive across the board. It says a lot that despite this 4-0 here, ultimately I do think it was still a very competitive series. So we go back to the notion of were Talon properly challenged? I want to say yes, it doesn't get reflected into the match score, but Xavier is still a team that I think do have the opportunity to go on to playoffs, go into quarters, still make a bit of a redemption run, still very likely to make the semis based on the fact that we think not only are they top 4 in this region, but potentially top 3 and maybe top 2, depending on how strong Hong Kong Attitude still look. I think they're definitely still a semi-finals caliber team, if not potentially making it to grand finals. Maybe they'll get their rematch versus Talon.
And that's one thing, the tough thing we've got to say for Xavier here. Look, any team inherently wants to better their previous season's results. Xavier have managed to do that up until now. If they want to better this last season's results, they actually need to make finals here. And they just lost to a team that themselves made it to a final and won it. That's the sort of team you want to be beating if you want to feel assured of making it to finals. Because here's the thing, right? At some point, you're going to come up against the finals caliber team in a quarter, in a semi, whatever. Maybe it's going to be Talon. Maybe it's going to be Hong Kong Attitude. We don't know who it will be, but eventually Xavier's going to play that team. And they've got to be able to beat them. They couldn't do it tonight.
By the way,
in a couple of weeks' time, they're going to have to do it.
I want to say, you know, a little bit of throwback to last season, but in that semi-final versus Cyclops Athlete Gaming, they were one Oasis round away from getting to that grand final versus Talon Esports. Obviously, very well played by Cyclops to get that, but what you can say is that was a potential grand finals appearance for Xavier, and they would have played it on home soil in Thailand. The fun story here is Talon Esports won the season on Xavier's home soil in Thailand. They won it live in Thailand. And I think that's just a fun little quirk about Talon Esports as well. That's where they got their victory.
It's interesting. Like we said at the top of this series, actually, it's kind of the finals that never was, but now that question gets answered as well. Talon arguably would have still won that one too.
Yeah, and now Talon Esports do get to go through first seed. I can't wait to see how they go up against some of these other teams as well. Hong Kong Attitude waiting for them on the other side, who do still have matches to play as well.